Dr. Manning, welcome to Asylum. Let's get it. Simple idea. I don't know if I'm gonna get these in the same order that I put them in the text above, but here we are. So I guess let me flip this. Okay, so there's four paths to awakening, so-called awakening. If we think of awakening as awakening from the story, awakening from the trance, sometimes we say awakening from over identification with a story that's keeping you small. Some of you have heard me discuss this as the drama triangle: victim, villain, hero. These are the three fear-based, scarcity-based, urgency-based, fight, flight, freeze, faint, cortisol-based ways of being. These are ways of disempowerment. They feel bad. They're negative feeling. They don't feel powerful. Um, so instead, I choose the model of the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey is way more complicated, and actually, if you work with me directly, you'll know that all of my work is based on a combination of the hero's journey, Myers-Briggs transaction analysis, neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, coaching, sales, marketing, just a bunch of different approaches to persuasion, ultimately helping someone access their unconscious mind, the part that we keep from ourselves because we've been so afraid. And the thing is, we spend our whole lives keeping things from ourselves that we're not ready to deal with at the time. When you're 5 years old, there's stuff that's simply not digestible at that stage in your psychological, socio-emotional, physiological development. Uh, and your story can't hold that. Your story, there's you can't make sense and meaning as it relates to yourself. Now, uh, at some point, based off your personality, you'll try multiple approaches to finally get peace, to get out of this pain, this angst, this existential itch, this question, this not knowing, this uncertainty. Uh, and ultimately, a lot of people refer to that as connecting to source, returning to one, um, self actualization, reaching fulfillment, reaching nirvana, um, accessing synchronicity, manifesting. It depends on who's marketing it. It's a bunch of different things, but ultimately, it's just the point at which you decide to stop buying into your own bullshit and taking action to get the things that you want, despite the fear. And often, because of the fear lets you know this is the place where you need to grow in courage. So, different personalities will approach this in different ways. So, there's four ways. The first one is study. Uh, A types like me will read a ton of books in the hope that we can learn enough to not have to eventually be like, yeah, this is way too much for me to learn. I get it. I feel safe. I feel competent. I feel powerful. Um, Studying, I studied this stuff for like since I was like 17, I've been trying to figure out why I have certain negative feelings and what it's going to take to make them go away, whether it's using substances or treating people a certain way or certain relationships or not being alone or earning a certain amount of money or living in a neighborhood, wearing certain clothes, driving certain cars, just all these different things, going to certain colleges, becoming a physician, becoming a software engineer, becoming a game developer, just all these doing these things that I was doing. And as I was doing all these things, I was just learning and learning, taking all these experiences. And, some of them would knock me back and I would get back up. And I would just keep studying. That's the first path. Now, the second path is suffering. A lot of people would just stay in the story and let the story beat them up. And they'll do what the story says. They'll identify. They'll continue to be controlled by the narrative. Now, I hope my homie's BMW isn't like overriding my message. So I'll pause for a bit. But it got quieter. Um, yeah. So the second one is suffering. Some people will sit there in the guilt and they don't feel empowered enough. So they just sit there miserable, pushing through. Um, Often in those three positions, they go through as a victim, a villain, or a hero, just living life in that story, suffering. Uh, and I often say in a lot of my work, there's a difference between pain and suffering. I had to make that up. I just came across it somewhere. The pain is what has to happen. You're like, ouch, I did something. There's a signal from my body or from my heart that it was not the best idea. I know the heart is part of the body, but in that case, I'm talking symbolic heart, not chest pain, not angina. Uh, um, that's number one. Number two, Number three is going to be service. Now, some of us, the guilt gets to the point where we're like, I feel terrible. I need to contribute. The drive to contribute, the drive to connect, the drive to demonstrate your value by seeing other people reflected and actually grow and be lifted from your presence, your energy, your time, your effort, your attention, your love, your commitment to them, your vulnerability with them. This is the service at the level of stepping outside of ego, uh, awakening to who you are, and then just in the service, using the service to create the courage. Because with me, a lot of the vulnerability that emerged in my way of being wasn't so much about um, courage, but about the realization that I had to take the risk of letting people know the things that I went through on the way to where I am now, and in hopes that they could understand why I do the things that I do now, and in hopes that part of the things that they're doing now that are causing them pain, they could look at those things and find meaning and realize, these external self-destructive, um, toxic to self and loved ones behaviors. Ultimately, you can replace them with a gentle, vulnerable service once you release the fear of being found not worthy or deserving to be in that place or in that person's energy, not good enough, not competent enough. And a lot of that comes from, folks who grew up in an environment where a lot of suffering was inflicted, family life was hard, financial life might have been hard. And as such, the belief is I was born into this suffering. So it's like when I've suffered enough, a lot of religions have this embedded. When I've suffered enough, I can go to heaven. I can die and go to heaven is the embedded metaphor. Uh, and the last one, one, two, three. The last one is surrender. Because at some point, hey babe, how was your run? Hey, I'm just doing a quick live right quick about the four paths to awakening. Yeah. All right. And the last one is just surrender. And as I said at the beginning, these four, we mix and match them based on our personality, our need for closure, our need for cognition, our trust of others, our trust of the world, our trust of ourselves, our sense of competence, our patience, how much we're willing to wait, how much we're willing to believe things that we don't see yet on faith, on other people's word, on intuition or just a feeling. The Prime truck is pulling up. I'm hoping it's not to my place. I've been bleeding the Prime every time Amazon um, or Alexa bings. I'm like exsanguinating. So tis pandemic mode, the end of pandemic coming back to like the outside. Um, so those are the four. First one is, and actually, I think that order works really well because I feel like that's the order that I took initially. It's like a lot of study in the hopes of not dealing with the emotions, in hopes of outsmarting the emotions, and that's an intellectual prefrontal cortex approach, out of body, dissociated from body. So that's study. The second approach again is suffering. A lot of times, the studying itself has an element of suffering because you're looking for something outside yourself that is actually inside. And even as you're studying these things about, quote, yourself, at least with my case, it was easier for me to spot these things in other people. And as I gave them grace and had gratitude for them as a person, even with those, and I can't even say flaws, those shortcomings in those contexts that were in our shared reality, as I learned to accept them as they are and relate to them based on who they are in the moment, it was less about studying humans in a book, less about studying humans in the abstract, and more about connecting with the people who are around me and present now. Um, so again, that's this where we go from suffering during my depression. I spent a lot of time in isolation, just wondering why I wasn't helping people. Just a lot of time in the stories, um, and a lot of service I was doing then. Even during medical school and even when I was working with software engineering companies, I would do the work, but it was from a feeling of disempowerment, a feeling of frustration, as if the work wasn't constructively meaningful to me. Um, so that's suffering. And then when you overcome the suffering, when you get over yourself, you can awaken to the opportunity that is in service based off all the studying you've done and the fact that you've suffered. You have a story to tell about what you've been through. And that story can serve others once you overcome ego. And then finally, There comes surrender, where you just realize that this shit's way bigger than you, and you just kind of go with the flow. And as Eric Tate likes to say, just be a good person to help people out. Just maintain your integrity, work on yourself, stay present to the bullshit that you create and that you attract. Be aware of the people that you're best fit to help, and let other people um, choose one of the paths to awaken. All right, Dr. Manny, I'm out. Be sure to drop by precisionmindsetcoaching.com, precisionmindsetcoaching.com, to get an idea of some of the resources that I've put together for you guys based off your feedback. And always receptive to your feedback. Looking forward to our next conversation. I'm out.